Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and others. Welcome to the second time to the second edition of Blue Wolf. Wolf loses no matter what the fuck he says. Ah! I gotta temper myself because I don't want to disturb the people that are watching TV upstairs. I don't want to be louder than that TV. So I'm going to try and be in control of my emotions, hard though that's going to be. I hate this three-parter. I'm just going to start there. This is a rant view. Like, I admit going into this, I was like, here's what I was expecting. You ready for this? I was going to watch the dub. The dub would be shit on a stick. And then I was going to watch the sub, and there was going to be several instances where I was just like, oh, that's good dialogue. Oh, that's good dialogue. Oh, that's good dialogue. No. No, the dialogue is absolute dog shit in both versions. In fact, the Japanese version is actually the reason this one is a rant view more than anything, because all of the shit that the dub gets wrong is because the sub handed it the wrong fucking cue cards. I hate this episode so fucking much. Like, oh my god. See, and oftentimes that's usually the sign of a rant view, right? I feel like ranting, therefore it's a rant view, right? That's usually how I operate. That's my modus operandi kind of thing. Well, that's true here too, but to a much lesser extent. Now, the reason why is simultaneously easy to explain as I turn off my phone so that I don't get disturbed. The reasoning why is simultaneously easy to explain and difficult to explain. And it all boils down to two simple words: character assassination. Because the drama of this episode revolves around two things: Joey being a fucking prick and setting the stupidity of the main target of character assassination into motion, namely Mai. Now, some people look at Mai and and if somebody like me was to say, to tell you that she was character assassinated in this three-parter, the question that would be asked is, what character? And that is a fair point. Because her characterization in this three-parter is absolute dog shit. So the episode, I don't even know where the fuck to begin, because you know what, this was bad in the manga too, because this was actually just as bad in the goddamn manga. Now I've neglected to look it up, admittedly. I don't know if I have them right here, because if I do, then I can just go ahead and look it up while I keep talking. But I meant to look it up, to look up how bad, because I always knew I was gonna probably rage about this episode in some capacity. Maybe not, enough to. Sorry, hair in my mouth. Maybe not enough to, label it rant view. But definitely enough that it. Whoops. Sorry. Maybe not enough to warrant the labeling of giving it rant view status, but enough that it would be like where I would be looking at this episode and wondering what the hell anybody could see in this damn thing. Right? And I'm sure that you've had episodes like that before where you view it and you know, maybe a lot of people are like, "Hey, this is really good." And then you look at it and you're like, "What the hell were you, were you partaking in, you know?" I've had that before. I'm sure you have too. Well, that's kind of this three-parter in a nutshell. Which is funny because this is not the last time I am going to, I will have had that question. That question will creep up into the back of my mind. Here they are. Sorry, my omnibuses were pretty buried, and I have no idea. Well, good thing I'm on her laptop, huh? Because I just unplugged my entire setup. Sorry about that. Good thing I wasn't. I'm not streaming right now, because that would have been terrible. That would have been god awful. So, yeah. Like I said, we're doing it live because, frankly, fuck this episode. This episode is not good enough for me to care that I'm gonna have to do a bunch of editing on this thing. So, sorry, future Alex, but you're gonna have to do some editing this week. But that's fine because you're on that YouTube dark, so getting this done is part of the deal. We get up to, we take 2 weeks off. The idea, I'll go ahead and just be honest with you, because I take 2 weeks off. We're on the tail end of the first week of that 2 weeks. I've said 2 weeks, and then I go from there. Okay. Yes. All right. So here we go. Oh, so give me a moment to quickly read through the way the manga plays out in this one. Oh, it's the exact same in manga too. Huh. Wonderful. Wonderful. How's that? So yeah, it pretty much played out the exact same as in the manga. Sorry about that. But yeah. It's kind of sad. Sorry. Adjusting shit. Oh my god. Wow. Apparently everything is conspiring against this rant view today. Just everything is conspiring against this rant view. Which is actually kind of fitting now that I say that out loud, because that's kind of how it happened with wasn't it? This whole duel was a conspiracy to get her to was a whole conspiracy to make her look like a fucking chump, to prove that Marik is a dangerous opponent. Now, there is a concept for that. It's called the red shirt concept. They fridged basically. Now, I know some people are going to take umbrage with me saying that. And frankly, I don't care, as I organize my shit. Because, I mean that sincerely. Got fridged. She did. There's no hand-waving this point, in my blunt opinion. She got fridged. There is no nice way to say that. There's a mean way to say that. that would be, kind of illogical, admittedly, to say. And that would be to say that she basically got curb stomped. Or, as, my friends would put it inaccurately, he, she got, she got raped. Which is not funny because, well, there's a lot of kink shit in this Duel, you know? Which is kind of funny in that regard. I mean, even her monsters go through it. She literally gets thrown up against a slab. Ugh. It was even worse in the manga, admittedly, because it was literally a whole freak show in the manga, complete with, "Oh, you decapitated Yummy Marik," but he's perfectly fine. He just picks up his head and puts it back on. Fuck. But I suppose I should just get on with it because I'm wasting time at this point. I'm basically just padding out the runtime. I already have to chop out like a fuck ton of these first 14 minutes, so I suppose I should get on with it. I'm going to start with the Duel. Well, and then we're going to dive into all of the ways that this episode character assassinates Mai. And Joey, for that matter. Let's begin. So in this one, the Duel doesn't start until 9 minutes and 20 seconds. Since I brought it up in the last episode as a kind of oh, hey, this is actually kind of a nice starting point. I figured I'd bring it up again. Because this Duel is way fucking slower. One of the big reasons... So that's point number one as to why this is a rant view, by the way. This episode is boring. Like, remove the fact that this series just does not give a fuck about giving female characters, prominent roles. No. The problem with this episode, with this series, is that it won't let women be awesome at all. The closest we get is the monsters. Dark magician girl kicking some ass. And that. Like, the closest we get is actually in the next... is actually next season, where we will get 2 instances of female characters actually being able to do something, which I guess is something, but then the next filler arc is literally going to turn right back around and basically shit all over the fairer sex again. Yeah, okay. Sure, DM. We could do an entire story of Mike overcoming her PTSD from this Duel. Well, when spoiler, she gets her mind returned to her. We could totally do that. Or we could, have her go suck a cult leader's cock after she got fucked over by a cult leader. That works too, I guess. I mean, granted, it is the dark side of a cult leader, but does Mai know about that? Or care? Because I don't think she does. And to be fair, why the fuck would she? But whatever. But anyways, so the gang also shows up late in both versions, and I'm just looking at them going, "What the fuck took you guys so long? Like, why were you so late?" They literally show up a turn in, and it's like, what? Ugh, whatever. I mean, by the time they show up, Revival Jam is already on the field. Like, really? Ugh, whatever. Which means both Mai and Marik took a turn, by the way. Just to reiterate that point. So Mai starts with Danane's Dark Witch. I actually really like Dunane's Dark Witch. It's actually kind of an interesting little vanilla monster. I've always been fond of the vanilla level 4 monsters that have decently high attacks, so, there's that. I like my monsters. I hate everything else. Then nothing new really pops up. Whips out some Amazon cards. Did she start with Sword Fighter? Actually, now I'm questioning myself on that one. I think she started with Dunane's and then she jumped right into Chainmaster. No, Chainmaster is later. It's Unfriendly Amazon that was the second one. Right. So there's that. So this is where I made a note about Mai's lead being a hoax because Marik is leading her by the nose, because of course he is. Because he's putting her in a situation where she'll take Raw, and because of a bullshit plot point that exists because plot, she will lose the duel because of a bullshit plot point. That's why I hate this episode, by the way. That's point 2, but we're not there yet. We're not actually, technically that's part 3. So there's the boredom, there's the character assassination, and then there's the bullshit plot point. But we'll get to that later. So Mirror Wall gets destroyed by Remove Trap. The only time Remove Trap means anything. Other than the first time it was used, which was back in Season 1, ironically. And then Marik is like, okay, I'm warmed up enough. Let's take this to the Shadow Realm. Shadow game. The first full-on... Fun fact, this is the first full-on Shadow game since Season 1. The last full-on Shadow game we had was actually Pegasus. Was the tail end of the Pegasus duel. Now, you might think, wait, but Blue Wolf, what about all of the other duels that we've had up to this point? None of them were Shadow games. No, seriously, none of them were Shadow games. Several of them were death traps. The Pandora with the saws, the anchor duel, the skyscraper duel. All those were death traps. This is the first time a full-on Shadow game is invoked. So there's that. Which is funny because not even Yami Bakura initiated a Shadow game, now that I'm thinking about it. Because, yeah, that wasn't a Shadow game. Hey, when that happened. Interesting. And interesting to think about. So Yugi tries to get Mai to forfeit, which wouldn't do shit. That's actually something I've always kind of weirdly wondered. If you do surrender in a Shadow game, doesn't that technically mean you just die? Because you are losing the duel? Surrendering counts as a loss, so why would forfeiting the duel save you from death? I don't understand that. I really don't. It's funny because this is actually a hang up. The whole forfeiting thing is something that I've brought up multiple times, and is kind of going to be my one hang up that's going to be similar to the YouTube channel Over Analyzing Anime and the whole Cal Snyder, I want to say the dude's name was, from Death Note. But I digress. So the unfriendly Amazon is brought up, and she just ends up destroying Danae's Dark Witch, who was taken over by Mass Beast Asgardius. Hence why I said Mai's lead is a hoax, by the way. And then that's when the memories start disappearing. First is Anzu, and Excuse me. First is Anzu. Second is uh, is Jinochi, and that's it. Those are the only two memories she loses. Go figure. I mean, granted, what's funny is that she doesn't actually lose any. Fun fact: she doesn't actually lose any more monsters that she does not send to the graveyard herself, though. So actually, that's not a plot hole. That's actually an interesting plot point. So then there's and then Makira the Destructor shows up. This guy needed a heavy nerfing to not be cheap as fuck. So for those not in the know, his original effect is the turn you send him to the graveyard by any means, you can activate as many trap cards from your hand as you want. Oops, I walked into Mirror Force, but Makira went to the graveyard. Some tools of the bandit. Yeah, you can see why this guy was banned for a while. Then he had to be, then he had to get a heavy nerf. His errata now makes him practically completely useless because he has to be sent from the field to the graveyard. You can only use his effect once per turn, and his effect only allows you to activate one trap card from your hand. Yeah. You can kind of see why you can kind of see how badly that was crippled. Still not the anime to TCG/OCG nerf of Card of Sanctity, though. No, that is a hard nerf. Have we had Card of Sanctity on the it yet, or have we yet to encounter it? Give me one sec. Card of Sanctity. Hey, let me see your... Wow, we actually have yet to see it. Damn! Oh man, and then we're gonna have to wait 10 full episodes after it actually debuts to see it again, then 2 more after that, then an additional 10, and then we won't see it for another 13, then we won't see it for another 7, then we won't see it for another 8, then we won't see it for another 11, then we won't see it for another 16. Each of these numbers is how many episodes after the appearance, by the way. So another 16 after that, then another 2, then we gotta wait 23 episodes, and then it makes an appearance 2 episodes later, and then because we have to go through the entirety of the Millennium World arc, it won't be seen for another 21 episodes after that. And then it's got some appearances in, and then it's got actually 2 appearances in GX, ironically, which, by the way, are 161 episodes apart. How's that for irony? Yeah, Card of Sanctity really didn't get used much outside of DM. Go figure. But yeah, no, I'll bring it up when it comes up. It's actually pretty soon. If you're curious, in about 4 episodes, which is like 3 videos, 3 of my videos from now. How's that? Or how's that for a bit of irony? But regardless, yeah, no. So Makiri the Destructor, powerful card. Black Pendant is also paired with him, and of course, the burn effect. That's what I was looking up a few episodes ago. I wanted to know where Black Pendant was, and if Malevolent Nuzzler was in the anime. It is not, as a fresh reminder, so we won't talk about it. So then, Mai uses Amazon as Chainmaster and her Drag Down to the Grave card to commit a blunder, specifically to take the Winged Dragon of Ra. We'll talk about it in the story section. We're in the duel section. I want to stick to the duel section. I'm not going to bring up the bullshit just yet. I want to talk about well, actually no, we will be bringing up the bullshit because it is. Actually, you know what? No, scratch that. We'll bring up the stupid plot point because I want to save it for last because it is the thing that pisses me off about this episode the absolute fucking most, which is ironic because it's the part of this episode I paid attention to the least. Seriously, I spent most of the dub portion of part 3 just jotting down the stupid chant. How's that for irony? And what's funny was I was listening and nope. Nothing important was happening. Oh yeah, by the way, confirmed when I watched the Japanese version for the record. Because remember, I watched both of these versions back to back. Heck. Barring any lunch breaks in between, of course. Oh, I got a bit ahead of myself. Apparently, Amazon archers strained Makira's attack, and that allowed unfriendly Amazon to destroy Makir, which is funny because it just took away the attack points it gained from Black Pendant, and then. And Rope of Life happened and resurrected Makiura with 800 extra attack points, which destroyed unfriendly Amazon. Hence, Jinochi's memory getting wiped. Then Chainmaster is dragged down to the grave. An Amazoness fighter takes its place. He tries to counter with Nightmare Wheel. I'm once again getting ahead of myself. Then Makiura tries to destroy the fighter, but Amazon Magician swaps the attack points, which unfortunately just leads to Card of Last Will giving Marik 5 new cards, which leads to, of course, because Makiura went to the graveyard, Nightmare Wheel showing up. But because Mai used Dramatic Rescue, well, that burn effect of Mai's monster getting held down didn't end up happening, which is actually kind of cool. Admittedly. And then the most powerful version of Harpy Lady shows up for the second time, Cyber Harpy. And then Elegant Egotist is used in order to bring forth the Winged Dragon of Ra's Sphere Mode. We'll talk about it when we get to the biggest thing that pisses me off about this episode, because it's related. The Sphere Mode is actually kind of fun to use in the real game, by the way. Because it's a kaiju. Now, if you're not familiar with the Yu-Gi-Oh version of that term, a kaiju is you're stacking your opponent's monsters and giving them a thing, which then if you play it right, I forget exactly how it works, but if you play it right, you get the Winged Dragon of Ra out, and it's got 4,000 attack when it shows up, and its summoning conditions are ignored. How's that for irony? I would love for Marik to try and pull that shit hitting the real card out in the real world, because then he'd get his ass kicked. Holding arms and holding legs is also not helped. It is not helping the whole kink thing, including the stone slab behind Mai, which appears out of nowhere. Here. Marik takes advantage of the bullshit, and then he wins because he takes control of Raw again, and boom, done. And okay, yeah, that's all I got for that. That's all I got for the duel. Now let's talk about the character assassination, shall we? Oh yeah, we're nowhere near done. We're nowhere near done, my friends. I'm sorry. I just wanted to blast through the duel because the duel part is actually decent. And it's like one of the few things that actually makes this episode somewhat palatable until you remember that this is literally my getting fucked over by a homicidal maniac. Heck, who is one pants unzip from turning this into a hentai. That's as far as I'm gonna go with that allegory, by the way. I'm just gonna say that he's one pant zip away from turning this into a hentai and go from there. So let's back up to the beginning of the beginning of the three-parter. Now that we've talked about the interesting, intricate nature of the duel, man, this duel would be so awesome if the storyline around it wasn't so garbage. Ugh. Anyways, so let's talk about why it's utter garbage, shall we? So they start out looking over Rashid, and they're like, oh, they're wondering why the hell Joey was able to get up and Rashid is still unconscious. And Joey thinks, oh, it's because I had you guys. Power of friendship. Corny, but whatever. Ever, sure. Power of friendship, sure, cool. Okay. Then Maya's like, oh, hey, power of friendship. I was a part of that power of friendship, right? And then sorry, not my, no, Mai's blunder is later. Here's Joey's blunder. Because he doesn't want Mai to think that he fancies her, he says she wasn't there in the dream. I know Joey's a kid, okay? I know Joey's a kid. I get it. Teenager, whatever. Teenager, kid, same shit, different pile. I get it. He's a kid. But there's two problems with the way with that idea, and it's as I stated, it's in all three fucking versions. I actually quickly flipped through the manga a little bit. It's in all three fucking versions. He literally says, "Oh yeah, you were totally not there." In the Japanese version and in the manga, he says that it's because she's too old, which he takes huge umbrage with in the manga. Like, wow, what the actual fuck, Janochi? Are you kidding me? I mean, imagine her as the teacher, and let her imagine her frickin' let her imagine, let her insert her own kink. If she wants to reenact those frickin' teacher student hentais, let her, for God's sakes. you know? I know that's bad, but it's like, again, it's a fantasy, okay? Fantasy is fine. It's weird. We don't need to see it on screen, but it's still fantasy, you know? Let her fill in the blanks. Yes, you were totally there. You were totally supportive. You were the teacher helping me with my homework. Maybe. I don't know. The dream doesn't have to make sense. Hence, if you really want to have him being dumb and my getting upset about it, be like, oh, it was kind of weird. You were the teacher, and it was kind of awkward, and then he refuses to elaborate, which leads to the idea that he may or may not have enjoyed that sort of thing. I don't know. I'm just spitballing at this point because anything would be better than telling her she wasn't there. And it was made even goddamn worse when when Janochi says that the next time he's totally going to dream of her being the teacher with a whip. You know, Janochi, I thought being dominated by strong women was my kink. Why you stealing my kink, bro? Anyways. So then Mai basically plays it up as duelist pride. Yes, I should just be alone because that's what a duelist does. Remind me which of you who won between you and Joey and you and Yugi? Oh, that's right, the one who had the fucking cheer squad. Up yours, Mai. She even acts like a bitch about it in the sub, and it's just like, are you fucking kidding me? Ugh, whatever. So then we get a cutaway to Yami Marik just before Mai's opponent is announced. Announced to be Yami Marik. We see Yami Marik going to kill Rashid, who apparently had the tattoo. Rashid's tattoo was was part of what caused the sealing thing. So while he's conscious, that tattoo helps him seal Yami Marik. Okay, that makes no sense and is frankly stupid. Also contradicted by later events, I feel like pointing out. Because, spoilers, Rashid will wake up eventually. Give it about a season. Then he's called away to go duel, and he says in both versions, he's like, "Oh, I guess you got lucky." Why does Yami Marik care about dueling? Especially when, and he knows, like, the intercom announced that Mai Kujaku's opponent was going to be Marik. So, no, seriously, why do you care? Especially when it's just stab, stab, sunk, leave. It's fucking weird, dude. Now, I get why it doesn't. It's so that, Marik, good Marik has a better chance of coming back when, in during the final battle. But, like, come on. Whatever. The subs music, also, I have a note here that says that the subs music can't save this episode because this episode was stupid and boring and it just kept pissing me off. Hell, that's actually my last note for the sub in part 1. Fuck, this part is boring because of the bullshit. Also, telling Marik to stop is just, what the fuck's the point of that? So before I move on to part 2, let me double check my part 1 notes. Joey being an idiot, Kaiba having an ego because, he's like, yeah, blah 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 blah. I still want to know what the hell made the gang late. Like, why? Where the fuck were you guys? Like, the dub at least tries to posit a excuse. It's a really fucking stupid excuse, but at least it's an excuse. I knew we shouldn't have waited for Tristan to get out of the bathroom. Like, but whatever. The dub also has a weird thing. It's like, why do I see such fear in your eyes? What fear, Marik? This is that whole anxiety thing. This is that whole anxiety thing that Pegasus was saying with Kaiba back in Champion versus Creator. It's like, are you kidding me with that? But whatever. I talked about forfeiting, not doing shit. Mai's blunder, taking the Winged Dragon of Ra. That's it. And I dipped into part 2. Whoops. I suppose we should talk about Marik's backstory. Or it's not Marik's backstory, sorry. Mai's backstory. Because in the Japanese version, we learn that Mai's parents died. Which is, whoops. Which is, whoops. Which is Blue Wolf throwing money around, apparently. No. It's tragic. It is tragic. And it is better than just they weren't around, which is what the dub posits. Here's the problem. It's badly timed because the idea is supposed to be that because she's losing her memory of Jinochi, that's what's making her think about it. The first time she was ever not lonely was when she first met Jinochi. Okay. Question then. Why were you being a bitch to him for the past, entire fucking episode? So then Yugi interferes. He comes in to do a counter thing. And Mai can still kind of remember because Joey's voice is etched into her heart. I kind of like that. I'm a Kingdom Hearts fan. What can I say? I kind of like that. The kink shit is through the goddamn roof. Oof. Which is also part of a point I actually have over here in my dub notes for part 3, that the whole slab is really not helping my point. The stone slab thing is really not helping my point. Right. This is something that I'm sure every sub watcher is going to hate me for. I hate Marik, the Yami Marik voice augmentation in this episode, specifically in this 3-parter. I'm pretty sure they'll stop doing any augmentation on his voice, and they'll just have the voice actor do the "Yes, I am going to talk creepy, being Yami Marik." I don't know where this accent thing is coming from. I don't know where this talking like a stereotypical vampire thing is coming from. Please forgive me, but yes, I will talk all creepy. I'm a creepy man. Shit like that. The Yami Marik voice. They will just do it as a standard voice. This is actually the first episode where they actually start in the dub the actual Yami Marik voice, which I actually kind of like. It sounds so weird to just hear regular Marik in Duel Links for Yami Marik. It's weird. I also hate that the gang encouraged Mai to the blunder. Another note about this episode being boring because it has no real rewatch value, in my opinion. And then there's a note about the whole "you're being controlled by God" thing, which is so stupid. Like, there's no evidence of that. No, if anything, you're the one manipulating her. What? Do you suddenly think you're late fucking Yagami and you're the god of the new world, Marik? No? Then shut the fuck up and stop wasting my goddamn time. Which leads us into part which leads us into part 3. Okay. I want to get a couple of things out of the way first before I dive into my big topic, because this is the episode where I really got to dive into this is the point where I got to dive into my big topic for this rant view. So, the Hieratic text doesn't appear until you summon the card. Why the fuck did Pegasus design it that way? Just put the fucking Hieratic text on the card. And be done with it. Like, seriously. Also, by the way, with how much study of ancient Egypt has been done, I seriously doubt the Hieratic text wouldn't be unable to be translated. You know, that's why I actually kind of prefer the whole Millennium items explanation more. But I do kind of prefer. But honestly, it just still feels kind of dumb to just make it so that these cards can only be used by specific duelists. I like the idea of the god cards choosing their wielders. It's, if you have enough respect for your deck, then you will have the duel. The Egyptian god cards will heed your call. This is a point to keep in the back of your mind for when we get to GX, specifically the second season of GX. I should not have closed my browser. Give me a moment. I need to look up Wind Dragon Raw. I am using ad blocker. Go away. Alright, anime. Here we go. Alrighty, GX. You appeared in 18? Oh, flashback, okay. 85 sounds more accurate. Yes. Specifically, the specific GX episode that I will be talking about is episode 85 of GX, which has a really, really, really terrible English dub name. It's kind of got an irritating name in Japanese, but it's not nowhere near as bad as the stupid pun that is the dub name. But yeah, we'll talk about that when we get there. Anyways, so yeah, I prefer that. Also, Seto describing the stats really don't matter at this point, because no matter what raw stats are, Marik wins. So what the fuck is the point? It's just time filler at that point. Also, this is a shadow game, but nobody dies. Huh. Also, I gotta admit, I've never liked the whole. Well, you know what? We'll get to that point in a minute. So, then Yami Marik in the dub talks about his motive. I will rule on high as Pharaoh. Again, generic. But in the sub, Yami Marik actually talks about his creation and how the darkness within normal Marik created him, which was actually it's actually kind of an interesting idea, and actually leads to a point that, leads to Yami Marik basically saying, my goal is to basically just either rule or blow up the world, whichever. I don't care. And, yeah, and that also leads to Yugi being like, or Tem being like, I will never forgive Marik's dark side. Which is kind of funny because that actually ties into an idea of, oh, it's the dark side that's going to be hated. Because to be fair, those death traps all did have ways out. And Marik didn't exactly kill anybody except for his own subordinates. I mean, he still killed people, but shrug, I guess? Whatever. Also, no one is disqualified for interfering with the duel, even though Joey is fucking warned about that. Wait, that makes no sense. Why would Kaiba not give a fuck about Joey still being in the tournament? What? Or does Kaiba just not give a shit? Kaiba's sitting there twiddling his thumbs until the end of the episode, where because he basically sits there till the end of the episode, just somewhat commenting, and then right at the end of the episode, he's like, "Yep, get the fuck out of here, clear the fucking field. Healed, I have a duel to fight." Which again is fucking stupid because you've seen proof even on this fucking blimp of what happens with people who get hit by god cards, but whatever. But yeah, it's all a bunch of bullshit. Bullshit, if I'm honest. Also, after the blast from Raw, Marik's penalty games Mai, and it's it's the mind game. She will slowly lose her mind. The hourglass will slowly fill, and her mind will slowly be destroyed. Which, yeah, let's hope a filler arc doesn't make that make less sense. I mean, I suppose we could argue that, at most, the virtual world arc is like a day or two. At absolute most, but whatever. Also, fun fact, the manga, it was flesh-eating insects. I got nothing. I'm not even touching that. Mine is trapped in an hourglass that's being slowly filled by flesh-eating insects. I'm not touching that. I'm not fucking touching that. Like I said, nothing I can't win. I lose no matter what I say, but even I'm not gonna shake the boat that fucking hard. Let's not tempt fate here. All right, let's talk about. So there's two things. No, no. Let's talk about my big plot point. Actually, I kind of need this still. No. Let's talk about my big plot point, and then we'll get to the very small changes section, because this changes section is very simple. So let's talk about the thing that pisses me off the most: the Hieratic text. So, in the dub, there is a chant that has two versions, depending on who uses it. Who uses the god card. Which is funny because some people say, hey, the. Is it seriously fucking snowing again? Oh my god, what the fuck? Canadian weather. Anyways. Sorry, where was I? Right. Some people would say, some dub haters would say that the chant changes every single time it's uttered. You know what's funny? You want to know how many times the chant is said? Twice. Now, if there's any callbacks to it, I will see if I can, I will pay attention to see if if it changes, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't change. So here's the Shadow Game version, okay? And yes, I am going to regale you with this crap. Great beast of the sky, please hear my cry. Transform thyself from orb of light and bring me victory in this fight. Envelop the desert with your glow and cast your rage upon my foe. Unlock your powers deep within so that together we may win. Appear in this shadow game as I call your name. Winged Dragon of Ra. Now, I prefer the Yugi version, of course, because, I prefer the idea of gracing our humble game, but first I shall call out thy name is just a better, rhyming scheme. Which is funny because I have a funny feeling that that's just effectively, you can translate the hieratic text, therefore Ra obeys you no matter which version of the chant you use. But let's talk. But the chant itself is not actually what I want to bitch about. It's the hieratic text itself. Why does the hieratic text piss me off? Well, my first sub-note with part 3 says it all. Because plot, and I don't mean tits, sadly. And I sadly don't mean tits. You've heard of that concept before, right? Something happening because plot. Why is Mai not able to take control of the Egyptian god card? Because plot. Why does anything happen? Why does everything go Marik's way? Because plot. Why does Mai lose this duel? Because plot, etc., etc. Now, sometimes because plot can be fine because otherwise we wouldn't have a story. And sometimes it can just be mildly inconvenient, and then you kind of just go, wait, what? And then you move on because it's a minor thing. This is not so minor. Because it doesn't help the point that I was originally going to blast this episode for. But I decided against it because I actually have more to bitch about that doesn't involve accusing this three-parter of being sexist. I was originally going to blast this episode for being sexist. But I've decided no. This episode is actually bad in spite of that. Because if you take away, the unintended sexism, you take away the fact that Mai is the only person who doesn't get to control an Egyptian god card, because Joey will never try to. Oh, and by the way, the only other characters other than the 3 that utilize the Egyptian god cards from GX are both males, by the way, are both guys, by the way. Just thought I'd point that out while we're on the subject. Yeah. I'm going to have to pay attention to the Japanese the version of that episode. Because it's like, aren't the god cards supposed to be gone? You would think they went into the afterlife with they went to the afterlife in the finale, but whatever. In the DM finale, but whatever. I'm getting way too far ahead of myself. My point is, the hieratic text is just there so Mai can't take control of the Egyptian god card. To take control of Ra. You know what's funny? I wonder what would have happened if she took Obelisk. Or Osiris, for that matter. Would this same thing happen? No, of course not the exact same thing. They just would refuse to obey her. I have a feeling that, for me, the hieratic text is just bullshit. And by memory, this is one of only 3 times the hieratic text will ever be brought up. And I mean that sincerely. I can only think of 3 times the Hieratic text will ever be brought up. So one of 3 times that the Hieratic text will ever be brought up. Here, the end of this season, and then in the 4th to last episode. Think about that for a second. It's brought up here, and it's brought up in episode 92. It's brought up in episode. I guess that would be. Then it's not brought up for 44 or 45, 46, and 47, 48. Okay, so. Yeah, I think it's 48 for this. I'm not booting up Crunchyroll just to check, but the thing is that this episode, this is one of only 3 times it'll be brought up, because there'll be a question mark on the one, even though I really think that that the person that is questioning, oh, you won't be able to use it, really just freaking should. Especially considering, especially because the sub's bullshit of, oh, hey, ties to the Millennium items thing is brought up, but whatever. And then again, like I said, in basically the final in the final 4 part of the series is when it's brought up again. In an admittedly awesome moment, but whatever. God, I fucking hate this episode. Now I can put my notes away, because my changes section is stupidly easy for this one. So, fresh reminder for those that are new, because I know I've been actually starting to get because I noticed I've been getting people actually watching my stuff now. What is a changes section? A changes section is I have to change, the idea is I try to put my money where my mouth is and say how I would make the episode better. But I have some rules that I always put in place for these rant views for episodic content, because I kind of need to. I have to stay within the premise of the episode. I have to keep, in the case of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duels, I have to keep the opponents and the outcome the absolute same. And I have to stay within continuity. So, in other words, I can't create a plot hole. I can't end my episode to the point where it would create a plot hole at the beginning of the next episode. Sense make? So, Mai still got to get trapped in the stupid hourglass. She's got to lose this shadow game. Blah, blah, blah. And I think I've come up with a way. First of all, have her beat the memory loss. Oh, I'm going to lose my memory of Jinochi. Nope. My bond with Jinochi is strong enough to beat it. Screw you. Done. Especially considering that technically happened within the episode. So I'm not even really shoving anything in there that wasn't there to begin with. I'm literally just shuffling an event around. There is one thing I would completely remove, though, especially considering the end of this season will actually benefit, actually helps with this, and that is get rid of the Hieratic text. You don't need it. It's a stupid ass. It's a stupid ass plot point, and it's literally just there so that the Winged Dragon of Ra can only be used by Marik. It's dumb. It's idiotic. It's unnecessary. Could you not have waited like 5 more minutes to start whining, cat? Anyways. And yeah. Maybe make it a bit of a closer match, but otherwise, no. Also, let's have the less kink shit in there, because like we don't need this is turning into a fucking hentai, okay? This isn't hentai and Maya's not on a train. Go away. I'm exhausted. I'm just exhausted. I hate this episode so fucking much. I knew I would, but it's like, oh my god, it is actually that bad. Just once I would love for an episode that I think is going to be a rant view to not be. Which is funny because there aren't that many episodes left that I'm guessing are going to be rant views, is that can avert it, which is funny because we've already had one avert being a rant view. Face Off back in season 1. But I seriously don't see how My Freaky Valentine or Faded with Pharaoh is going to avoid rant view. I mean, we'll see. Obviously, I haven't decided, that it's not a hard line in the sand. It's just, if Raphael's motives suck ass in the fucking Japanese version, well, there you go. I have a headache. I'm gonna go take a breather. I'm gonna degauze with some frickin' Xenoblade X because the definitive edition just came out from the time I'm recording this about a week ago, funny enough. Oh, I hate this episode. Oh, fuck. I don't know when, from my perspective, I'm going to get to it, but at least next time I get to talk about an episode that is actually awesome, because next week is Kaiba changing the future. Time to talk about how prediction powers are bullshit. Ugh. God. Until next time, Blue Wolf Alex the Lore Walker signing out. Have a good one. Fuck this episode. Duel standby.